This is kind of a multi-part question, part statement. Due to its breadth, it may be something we discuss after this or at the dinner. I brought up some of these queries yesterday. Hopefully I'll be better able to articulate my concern. I work with tech companies as an advisor. I was just presenting on bias in generative artificial intelligence down in Florida. The question was, how do we prevent misdiagnosis, poor treatment plans, or poor outcomes occurring more frequently in marginalized communities, like the Black community? If the computers are not given data on what happens to Black men my age with my lifestyle choices and genetic profiles, how would the computer make accurate predictions for treatment or et cetera? One of the conclusions from the engineers from that conference was, if the data is biased, it's going to be hard to mitigate. So the question emerges, how do we get less biased data? It seems like Black representation in these studies and in the profession is low. I was misdiagnosed. It took me going to the hospital and then 3 different doctors in order to get a correct diagnosis. When I went for my consultation prior to beginning immunotherapy, I asked what the outcomes and survival rates were for people on the medication that are like me, and there was no info, there was no answer. How was I supposed to make an informed decision? Once I did begin the treatment, one of my labs came back saying that my red blood cells were misshaped and my white blood cell count was low. We needed to suspend treatment and make sure my immune system wasn't attacking itself. I saw a hematologist who'd worked extensively in the Bronx with Black and brown communities, and she explained that my labs were normative for people of African descent, and what is normative for white blood cell count and shape of red blood cells for Black folks is not the same as Europeans, which has led to us as Black people going into kidney failure, and it being undetected, or issues with the liver because the red flags are different and doctors aren't trained for it. So how do we fix the issue of getting more data or better data? I asked yesterday what the floor or bare minimum number of subjects need to be for a viable study, and I didn't get a quantitative answer. As scientists, it seems like you all are very driven by numbers and goals, and so I think if we are able to generate a number of bare minimum for a viable study or a bare minimum percentage, that could be important. And when I mentioned this yesterday, one of the answers was, it may be too difficult at the moment, or screening for race adds variables that are challenging. I don't think that answer satisfies me. Is the study relevant to the world if it only applies to white folks in America? What it sounded like to me was, I have to wait while we figure out how this stuff works for people like y'all. I'm the only Black man sitting here. And once we figure out how it works for y'all, because I'm working with y'all on it, we can then focus on my community. Historically, that doesn't bode well for the marginalized. So I think it's imperative as researchers, as clinicians, as seekers of knowledge, that we address the racial and ethnic issues, whether the misidentifying of identity, where you have Hispanic people who don't call themselves Hispanic or say they're not Black when they are due to whatever happens in society, the lack of genetic testing and the issue with self-reporting of race or identity, how folks get categorized in census, like Lebanese are considered white in America, like that makes no sense, and the lack of biobanks on the continent of Africa, where you have billions of people who have skin like mine. There may be a wealth of information. We don't have relationships with universities in any of the countries in Africa. Where are the Black dermatologists who've worked with Black neighborhoods here? Where are the oncologists from countries full of Black and brown people? Why aren't more of them here? Now, I ask these questions in good faith. I know we are all, and I can testify in talking to y'all, I see the passion, I see the commitment, I see the effort. So this is in no way disparaging. This is the reality of, we're taking on a huge issue, and that has 1,000 years of development when it comes to racism and anti-Blackness. And so I know it's going to take a long time to reconcile, but I was not so satisfied with some of the responses I got yesterday with, wait till we figure it out for the majority class here. But I do thank y'all for welcoming patients to share this, and where I can show you my pictures of what my toe looked like. I can show you when I was in the hospital. I can show you how real this is and how people like me are affected by this, and how, the reinforcement of how important the work is that you're doing. So I hope no one takes this in any way an offense, and it's all an appreciation.